Welcome to Pay What You Can webinars by Paul Lima. Today's webinar is how to do what you want to do. How to do what you want to do. Pay what you can at paullima.com/PWYC. Just so you know, if you get nothing out of the webinar, feel free to pay nothing. It is a Pay What You Can webinar. The webinar includes the PowerPoint that you're looking at right now. If you're unable to download the PowerPoint, email paullima.com@gmail.com. Use the subject line PPT want to do. You'll receive a PDF file of this PowerPoint, and it can be opened on almost any computing device. For more information on my other Pay What You Can webinars, visit paullima.com/PWYC. Start with a little bit about me, very little. I've been a professional writer for over 35 years. Since 1990, I've worked as a freelance business writer and writing trainer. I've written and self-published 20 plus books. I get done what I want to do. In other words, I follow what I am about to describe, explain to you. Anyway, if you want to read more about me, go to paullima.com. That's my website, and you can read more about me and the services that I offer. Meanwhile, on with the webinar. Let's start with must-dos versus want to do. First off, you need to know the difference between must do or have to do and want to do. There are things you must do or you have to do, but there are things that you want to do. And this webinar is about the want to do's. Things you must do or have to do: you must eat, you have to sleep, you must defecate, urinate, bathe and dress yourself. If you're sick, you need to seek medical attention. But for the sake of this webinar, we will presume you can do some stuff. You may have some kind of disability, but that doesn't mean you can't want to do something. Your disability could be physical, could be mental, could be emotional. I hope this webinar helps you work through those disabilities, if you have any, and helps you determine what you want to do and how to go about doing what you want to do. Let me pose a question. Do you need a job? You see, you need a place in which to eat, sleep, defecate, urinate, bathe, and dress yourself. For some, that means you need a job to make money or need to run a business that generates an income. Others have a pension and savings and have no need to work. So some of us have to work, but some of us want to work. Some of us want to run our own business. Some of us want to run a particular business. Now, I'm focusing more on things that you want to do, perhaps to amuse yourself or to help others. But what I talk about today can be applied to your work or to businesses. Only you can determine what, if anything, you have to do or must do. That's not something this webinar will determine for you. We're focusing on how to do what you want to do. And if you're thinking, gee, I don't know what I want to do, we're going to be looking at that too. So to summarize, you need to eat, sleep, defecate, urinate, bathe, and dress yourself, and afford a place in which you can do this. Anything else on your to-do list, and we'll talk about that in a moment, is a want to do, not a need to do. A lot of people think they have to do some things that they don't. We're looking at what you want to do. That's what this webinar focuses on, what you want to do. Again, I hope the distinction is clear. There are things you need to do. There are things you want to do. And this webinar is focusing on the what you want to do. So on your list one, the first thing to do if you want to get things done is to make a list of all that you want to do. For some, that's more difficult than it sounds. The reason why is that difficult to make a list of the things you want to do? We don't get things done because we don't know what we want to do. And I'm going to show you how to figure out your wants. I'm going to take you through a process that will help you determine what you want to do. And then I'm going to show you how to do what you want to do. On your list too, for others, there are 3 reasons we don't get things done. We want to do too much. There's so many things I want to do and I end up doing nothing. We don't make it real. We don't write it down and make it concrete. We don't write down what we want to do. It's there, all this want stuff floating around in your cranium in an amorphous manner. And you don't get to do any of it because it's not concrete. You don't write it down. We don't set priorities. I will address all of that too, but first, for those of you who don't get things done because you don't know what you want to do, I have an exercise called clustering I'm going to show you. But even those of you who have a strong sense of what you want to do should try clustering to see where it takes you. If you say, I know what I want to do, you might skip the next few slides on clustering, though I strongly encourage you to try this. It will either reinforce what you want to do, or it may bring up some things that you haven't thought of. So clustering, that's what we're going to do. It's a pre-want to do list exercise. Clustering is a right brain exercise that helps you put down on paper everything you associate with a topic. It sparks themes, ideas, topics related to your subject matter that you might not have consciously thought of. That's why those of you who know what you want to do, I'm suggesting you do this. There may be some things that are unconscious. And if you don't know what you want to do, I'm suggesting you do these exercises to help you get down on paper everything you can want to do. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but I think it will all be made clear over the next few slides. So the first question I'm sure you have is, how do you cluster? You jot down a keyword or phrase in the middle of a blank page, underline it, circle it, draw a long dash from the keyword, jot down the first word or phrase that comes to mind. It's kind of like a stream of consciousness. What comes to mind? Circle that word or phrase, draw a dash from that word or phrase, and jot down the next word or phrase that comes to mind. Circle it. Repeat until you come to the end of the cluster string. So you've got your keyword in the middle, you got this string of words, phrases that you associate with the keyword. When you come to the end of it, then your mind will just say, okay, I can't think of anything else to associate with this. Return to your keyword. So you return to your keyword, moving quickly, you draw a dash from your keyword and jot down the next word or phrase that comes to mind. Circle that, draw a dash, jot down the next word or phrase. Carry on returning to your keyword and brainstorming until you fill the page. So as your strings run out, you return to your keyword. What does that inspire? But a picture is worth 1,000 words. So let me show you a cluster. Here is a clustering on the word clustering. Clustering is a right brain idea. It leads to left brain exercises, helps you create an outline if you're writing something which is linear. Clustering, if we look down, grapes, cluster of grapes, Don Cherry, his nickname was Grapes. Don Cherry speaks in a stream of consciousness manner. Stream of consciousness is what I call free fall. That led to an idea for a workshop called Writing Without a Workshop. Clustering is a pre-writing exercise, helps you generate ideas, information, helps you produce chunks of data, chunking, and we'll talk about chunking soon. Outline for those of you who write. How do you eat an apple one bite at a time? Again, clustering, the word clustering helped me produce an idea for a workshop. So there are other words and phrases and cluster strings that we associate with clustering. I just wanted to show you, again, picture is worth 1,000 words, how to do it. So you start with your keyword, which is clustering, and you produce a string of words that you associate with it. You run out of ideas, you go back to your keyword clustering and produce your next string, go back, produce the next string. So what are we going to cluster? I want you to cluster the word apple. Now, apple is an innocuous word. In other words, I want you to experience clustering. If you can pause the webinar, may I suggest you do that now? Write down apple, underline it, circle it, and cluster it for the next, 5 to 10 minutes. See where it takes you. Again, I just want you to experience the exercise. So if you can, pause the webinar and cluster the word apple. Welcome back. I'm going to give you another word to cluster. I hope you had a good experience in clustering the word apple. I want you to cluster the word me. That's me as in you, not me as in Paul, the workshop or webinar presenter. So take 5-10 minutes and cluster the word me. See where it takes you. Again, if you can, pause the webinar, cluster the word me. On your mark, get set, pause, and cluster me. Welcome back. I would like you to now cluster the following words. These are words that are going to help you discover wants. You may have discovered some when you clustered me. These words here are more specific, and they're meant to help you discover what wants. Now, cluster freely. Not every word phrase you put down is going to be a want. That's okay, because you're brainstorming here. You're coming up with as much as you can associate with the word. So again, if you can pause, I would like you to take 5 to 10 minutes per word and cluster the following words: interests, passion, hobbies, fun. There may be other words you might think of that are vaguely related to something you want to do. That's fine. Cluster them. Take some time, pause the webinar, take some time and cluster the heck out of interests, passion, hobbies, fun, and any other words you might think of. Go for it. Welcome back. So pre-writing exercise 2, we've done our clustering. We have extensively clustered a number of words that are meant to help us discover things that we want to do. What I would like you to do now, ideally if you have a highlighter, that would be very useful. Review the clusters of the keywords that represented your topics. Not every cluster string will be relevant to your topic. Many will be relevant, some will be discarded. In other words, you look at it and think, well, that's ridiculous, but that's the nature of brainstorming. Not everything you jot down will be used. But I want you to go through and highlight words or phrases that represent or seem to represent stuff that you want to do. When I did my initial clustering years ago, writing and training and words and phrases associated with writing and training came up. And what have I been doing for the last 35 years? Been a writer, trainer. It's really helped me focus my business. Now, this is not a business webinar, but clustering can help you focus your business, especially if it's something you want to do. You're looking for something that you want to do to try to make some money. But clustering can also help you focus your life, come up with words, phrases that represent things that you want to do. Now, what do you do with them? We'll talk about that in a moment, but I want you to review your clusters, highlight the keywords, phrases that represent things that you want to do. highlight as many, even if it seems overwhelming, highlight as many as seem appropriate to stuff you can do. Those of you who had no ideas and those of you who had them should now have many ideas of things you want to do. Now we're going to move from the right brain clustering exercise to the left brain listing exercise. I want you in a computer file to list all the things you want to do. The list can be as long as you want to make it because we're blue skying here. We're putting down on paper everything we can think of that we want to or might want to do. Again, create this list on your computer, save it as a file, use the name want all. So what you've got based on your clustering, what you have here now is a list, could be a long list of things that you want to do or might want to do, saved as a file, want all. Check it twice. I want you to now save the want all file as a second file. Don't delete the want all file. You may at some point want to go back to it. So save the second file called want to do. So you've now got your want all file saved as want to do. So look through it, check it twice, delete wants on this list that are the least appealing to you. It made my cluster, it made my want all list, but yeah, I don't really think I want to do that. Fine, delete it. Delete things that are not really something you'd want to do compared to everything else on your list. Well, I've got 15 items on here. You know, these 3, 4, 5, I don't think I want to do them. 6, 7, 8, whatever. You know, they're not really things I'd want to do compared to other stuff on the list. Delete it. Delete anything that's far-fetched, as in stuff you really don't see yourself doing in your lifetime. Now we've got a caveat here. There's nothing wrong with far-fetched wants on your list, as in things that seem out of reach, but you'd really like to try to reach for, because I'm going to show you how to make that reach. So if something is far-fetched, like you really don't know, I want to travel to the moon. Okay, probably not going to happen in my lifetime. Delete it. But if something else seems that's just a bit out of my reach, leave it on the list. I'm going to show you how to reach for that kind of stuff. So we've got the want to do file. We've deleted a lot of stuff that we don't want to do. That's way too far-fetched. So we reduced our want list to want to do. Now I want you to save your list a third time. Call it want priorities. What we're going to do is prioritize our list. You take a good long look at the list and put your wants in order based on your priorities. I'm not asking you to put the easiest stuff at the top. I'm asking you to put at the top of your list what your heart, your brain, your gut says is what you'd most like to do. So we're prioritizing our list. Now you may have multiple tasks on the list, absolutely nothing wrong with that, but the stuff should be things that you really want to do in the order, the priority in which you want to do them. So your want priorities file will include those things you think you can do in the order in which you would like to do them. So you now have a list of wants, want to do, based on your priorities. So we've gone from, some of us have gone from nothing to a list that is prioritized. Some of us gone from some things that we want to do to a more extensive list or a list that is more prioritized. So I hope these exercises help you come up with a list of things you want to do that are prioritized based on your heart, your brain, your gut. And again, I don't care if these are business things that you want to do or things that you want to do for fun, for recreation, if like me, you're retired, things you want to do during the day to fill your time in a constructive and productive way. This is your list, not my list. So stuff you really want to do in order priority in which you want to do them. Now we're going to have fun with our prioritized list. I want you to save your list a fourth time as want chunks. See, what you're going to do now is break each task down into a series of manageable chunks. You know how I said I was going to show you how to reach for things that may seem a little far-fetched or out of reach? The way you reach for them is to chunk them. Break your major task, your major want, into manageable chunks. Allow me to use this webinar as an example to show you how I chunked a major want into a series of minor or less major tasks. So this is what chunking looks like. Create how to get things done webinar. That was on my list. Now, if that's just sitting there, I'm looking at that line and I'm intimidated because that's a big to-do. It's a big want to do. Well, how do I do it? Part of what holds people back is not knowing how to approach things. So I chunked it. Write how to get things done webinar. That's the first thing I had to do. I had to write the webinar. Edit how to get things done webinar. After you write something, you edit it. You look at it, you move the points around, you check for grammar and spelling and things like that. You have to edit it. Create how to get things done webinar PowerPoint. So I had a Word file, which I had written and edited, and then I had to move everything into a PowerPoint. You are looking, if I've succeeded, at the PowerPoint here. Edit how to get things done webinar PowerPoint. So again, just like writing in the Word file, when you write your PowerPoint, you have to edit it. Record how to get things done webinar using Loom. For those of you who want to do webinars or would like to record something on your computer, want your voice and visuals to mesh, you may want to look into Loom. That's what I'm using. Loom is free. At some point they ask you to pay, but if you don't want to pay, you continue to use the free version. Record how to get things done webinar using Loom. That's what I'm doing right now. Well, it may not be right now in terms of when you're listening to it, but that's what I am doing right now as I'm speaking. I'm recording how to get things done webinar. Upload how to get things done webinar to Loom. I'm not going to go into the technical details, but once you finish your recording, you upload your recording to Loom. Loom converts it into an MP4 video file. So I had to download the How to Get Things Done webinar from Loom. And then I want it for public consumption. I had to upload the MP4 How to Get Things Done webinar, which I had downloaded from Loom. I had to upload it to YouTube. And you wouldn't be watching this if I didn't promote the How to Get Things Done webinar using social media and my website, etc. So again, you've got a want. Mine was create how to get things done webinar. I'm asking you to chunk your want down into manageable tasks. Suddenly it's not so difficult to do. Create how to get things done webinar. Holy cow, that's a big task. Hard to wrap my head around that. Break it down into manageable chunks, and I'm doing it. Chunk by chunk by chunk. With these tasks in front of me, I can work on the webinar project chunk by chunk over several days or more. Everything required to get my want done is in front of me. It's on my computer file, broken down into chunks, a list of things to do. Most people, when they create lists of things to do, just put the big projects down there, and then they don't get anything done because everything on their list feels overwhelming. Chunk it. I know what I need to do to make my want a reality. And that's the position you want to be in. You want to know what you need to do to make your want, or plural wants, a reality. My want is not some amorphous idea floating around in my head that I can't quite grasp or that feels intimidating because it's such a large task. It's a series of chunks. Oh, I can do that in a couple of hours. I can do that in a day. Yeah, I can do that in a half hour. Ah, that's easy to do. As opposed to, holy crap, what a huge task that want is. Break it down, chunk it, makes it easier to get things done. It's on my list. It's broken down into manageable chunks that I can work on over time. And if I get a chunk down and want to move on to some other task on my priority list, I can, knowing I moved this one forward. So I do a chunk and then I can step back and say, okay, I'm going to relax. I'm going to read a book or watch some good TV, both, by the way, which are on my want list. And I don't have to feel guilty about sitting on the couch, reading a book or watching TV because I've crossed off a major chunk or two of my priority want. So literally, I am able to relax because I have broken the big task down into little tasks. And when I do a task or two on the list, I then reward myself with something else that's on my list that's less demanding. Reading a book, watching some good TV, whatever the case may be. So you can work on multiple things on your want list if you chunk them. It helps keep you from getting bored as well with the task. This is fun. I want to do it, but my God, been working at it for 3 days without a break. I'm bored. Silly. Hey, this is fun. I want to do it. I've done 2 chunks. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go jogging, swimming, biking. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to watch some TV, whatever. And I'll get back to chunk number 3, 4, 5 tomorrow. I hope this makes sense to you, folks. Chunk your wants and work on them chunk by chunk enables you to give yourself some time off to do some other things that are on your list, or maybe to do some things that you have to do without feeling guilty about not doing the want to do stuff because you have done 2 or 3 chunks of the want to do. Are you watching this webinar? If you're watching how to do what you want to do, you know that I have completed all the chunks on my how to do what you want to do want list. I have completed all the chunks required both to get it done and to find an audience for it. So if you're watching this, you know all those chunks? They've been done. This is my want. Totally complete. That's what you want to do. Complete your wants 1 chunk at a time. Using this method to run my business, I became a successful freelance writer and writing trainer. I wanted to be a writer and I wanted to be a trainer. I was working in the corporate world and had gotten tired of it. I thought, what is it that I want to do? Okay, I want to write, I want to train, and I want to make money doing it. Let me tell you, that was a huge list with a lot of chunks on it. But that's what I've done for the last 30, 35 years and have done very successfully. I'm 65 now, sort of retired. I do a few things, but I'm having a lot more fun doing some new wants on my new want list. Using this method, I've written 22 books. Not 1 book, not 2 books, but 22 books, which I learned how to self-publish. Learning how to self-publish was a huge chunking list. Honest to God, you don't just say, okay, I've written the book, I'm now going to self-publish it. You have to learn a lot. You have to do a lot to self-publish your book. Intimidating, overwhelming. Hey, not if you break it down into a series of chunks step by step. Using this list method, my wife and I figured out a marvelous 3-week European vacation. Our dog had passed away. We were thinking of getting a new one. I said, let's take some time off. Let's go to Europe. There are some people who go to Europe on an annual or basis or every couple of years, whatever. For us, this was a once in a lifetime vacation. But we knew we didn't want to do an on and off the bus or train tour of Europe. We knew we didn't want to drive. We asked ourselves what we wanted. We really thought about our want. And we ended up taking a 3-week riverboat cruise through Europe, and we loved it. But we had to think about it. What is it we want to do? Based on that want, what is it we don't want to do? So what is it we want to do? We want to travel in a relaxed manner. We don't want to be packing and unpacking our luggage. We want to put our bags down. So do we just visit one city? No, we want to see a lot of Europe. Hey, wait a minute. Riverboat cruise solved all our issues, helped us achieve our want. So you can use this list for business or for pleasure. This method. Want, chunk it, think it through, do what you want to do. Now, some of you might say, my wants are more complex. Your want may be more complex than my wants listed here. However, the process for determining what your wants are, setting your want priorities, and chunking your wants into manageable tasks is the same. I don't care how complex or simple your wants are. The process is the same. First, you have to think about what you want to do and come up with a list. Then you have to prioritize it. Then you have to break the items on your want list down into chunks that you can manage. So figure out what you want to do and follow the process to make your wants your reality. Get your want to do list to the point where it's all over but the doing. And then start to do what you want to do, one chunk at a time. That's my advice. That's my suggestion. It's worked for me. It's worked for others I know. Some people think it's a huge secret. It's not. It just takes some thinking before you start the doing. One chunk at a time. Give me a minute. If you want, you can exit the webinar now, but let me tell you a little bit about my books. I'm not going to read them all. If you go to paullima.com books, you can see the books that I have written and self-published. Lots of books on writing, also my memoir, how to write memoirs, business writing, how to write a nonfiction book, etc., how to become a freelance writer for corporate markets or for newspapers and magazines, etc., etc., copywriting, how to write articles, media releases, paullima.com books. You will see all the books there. You can click on a book and read the description. I even have a book of short stories called Rebel in the Back Seat and Other Short Stories. I am not a fiction writer, although I have written a little bit of fiction, and I thought, hey, this stuff seems pretty good. Let me put it in a book form. I know how to self-publish it. I also have other webinars about writing and establishing a business vision, and I have video blogs about multiple sclerosis and my books. You can read about them online at paullima.com, PWYC. The video blogs on me and my multiple sclerosis is something I'm dealing with are free. The video blog about my books, my various book, is free to watch. The video webinars on writing, business writing, and things like that are pay what you can. So you go to paullima.com/PWYC and you can read about the various webinars and video blogs that I have out there for you. Finally, if you've received value from today's webinar, Please feel free to pay what you can at paulima.com/PWYC. There's information on how to pay by credit card or e-interact or transfer. If this workshop did not meet your expectations, if you're saying, I've never been so bored, I've learned nothing, feel free to move on. There's no obligation to pay for something that you feel did not help you in any way, shape, or form. Again, just a reminder, the webinar includes the PowerPoint. If you can't download it, email paulima.com@gmail.com. Subject line PPT want to do. I will send you a PDF of this PowerPoint that you can open in any computing device. So that has been how to do what you want to do. I hope you understand the first thing you have to do is figure out what you want to do. The second thing you have to do is create a list of the things you want to do in priority, based on your priorities, chunk it, and then go at it one chunk at a time to do what you want to do. Thank you for your attention and for listening. Have a good day. Take care. Bye now.